Welcome to ClickView Tips and Tricks. My name is Josh Good. I'm a Solutions Architect here at ClickTech. Often when using ClickView, you'll want to select specific date ranges. Sometimes just selecting a date range like that works very well, or selecting an arbitrary date. Well, also, of course, you could just select an entire month or an entire year. Sometimes we do have the need, though, to select between two arbitrary date ranges, a from and a to date, say from April 24th through March 5th. There are many different ways to set up the application to make that selection. The method I'm going to show you today involves using triggers. First thing I do is create a new sheet object and create an input box. We're going to create two new variables, vStartDate and vEndDate. These are the variables that we're going to use to adjust the order date. So one thing we do want to make sure is that the format of the dates in our variables is exactly the same format as our dates on the field that we want to select on. So in this case, we have day, dash, month, dash, year. So we're going to go into the properties of these two variables and go to numbers, and we're going to make these dates. And you notice the format here is month, day, year. We're going to change that to day, dash, month, dash, year. And we'll do that again for the end date as well. This is a very important step. If the format of your variables do not exactly match the format of the date field you want to select on, then you won't be able to make a selection and it won't work. So do take some note on the format of your date field and make sure yours is the same here. It may not be the same as what I'm putting in. Just click OK. And now, in order to make a selection on this date field, what we're going to do is we're going to apply a trigger. So every time that these variables get changed, we're going to make a selection over on the date field. That's done by going to Settings, Document Properties, then you go to the Triggers tab. You see down at the bottom, it says Variable Event Triggers. So we can click on End Date, and we can, every time that gets changed, we're going to add an action. So on change, we'll add, and we're going to make a selected. We'll do a Select In field. Click OK. We're going to select in field. In our case, it's on the order date field. And then our search string is going to be a combination of all the dates that are less than or equal to the end date and greater than or equal to the start date. So we're going to type out this little bit more advanced selection string. So it's going to be equals, single quote, greater than or equal to, single quote, ampersand, the start date, ampersand, single quote, less than or equal to, single quote, ampersand, the end date. So we're going to choose all the dates that are greater than or equal to the start date or less than or equal to the end date. I'm going to put that on my clipboard. Click OK. Click OK. And then we're going to apply the exact same action anytime the start date changes. So we'll click Add, Select In Field. And it was, in our case, it's order date is the name of the field we want to control. And I've just pasted the exact same expression to resolve the date range we want to select. Click OK, and click OK again. So now if we enter in a date, so let's try the 20th of April, 2008. And now you'll notice we selected all order dates that are greater than or equal to April 20th, 2008. And then we can put another constraint on there, maybe May 2008. And there we go. We're now selecting all the dates between those two date ranges. If we change this, perhaps to the 5th of May, you see that the selection gets made again. So every time we make a selection. So that works really well. One thing we may want to take us a little bit further is now if I make a selection over here on the order date field, you notice that my dates for my variables don't change. So we can cover that by going back in to our triggers by going to Settings, Document Properties. And then we can add an event trigger for the order date field. So we'll go to Order Date, and on Select, we can add, and we can do an external and set the variable. And we're going to set the variable v start date equal to min order date. And we're also going to set the variable v end date equal to max order date. So now when we make a selection, you'll notice that at the same time, our variables will now change with each selection we make as well. And we can also control it in the other direction as well. So now we have full interactivity between the variable and the order date, and they can both stay in sync with each other. One thing you may have noticed is it's a little bit awkward to be selecting on these variables. So we can take this one step further, and we can add a new sheet object, and we'll add a calendar object. And this calendar object, we're going to make it a variable, and we'll do the start date. The minimum value is going to equal the minimum of the order date. Now we also want to do a little bit of an override here, because since I have selections on order date, I'll only be able to select dates that are available in my selection, only the green that's been selected. So I'm going to use a little bit of set analysis here, curly brackets, dollar, curly brackets, and that's going to override my selections and include all of the values of order date, regardless of what my selections are at any particular time. And then the max value is going to be the same thing. It's going to equal max, curly bracket 1, curly bracket, order date. And we'll make this, we'll call it start date. One final thing here I forgot to do is in the calendar slider. So now we can select in the calendar. So now we have the ability here to use a calendar, and we can simply select with that calendar a specific date, and then we'll be able to select on that. So I can do exactly the same thing. I can copy this object to the clipboard and paste the object, and now I can do exactly the same thing for the end date. So we'll change this to end date equals min, curly bracket 1, curly bracket, order date, close paren, 2 equals max. And then we'll just change the name here from start to end date. Click OK. Now I can make my selections using the calendar as opposed to making selections by typing things in. Which way you allow your users to make selections is completely up to you. Either way works. Some prefer the calendar. Some people like to type it in directly using the keyboard. So we have two, fully functional date selector. We don't really need this anymore if we're going to use the calendar selector. We have a start date and an end date. We can choose any start date and any end date. That concludes QlikView tips and tricks for today. Please do consult QlikView Community for additional information. And don't forget, we have excellent partners and expert services who can also assist you on an individual basis. Thank you.